call. Michael Piot here. Tara Yang.
Here.
Alderman Brian Johnson.
Here.
John Callowitz.
Here.
Glenn Sherman. Okay. Ace Champion. And Christopher Garcia.
Here.
Okay. Let's have the approval of the agenda for August 2nd, 2021 for the meeting of the Economic Development Authority.
Move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Do we have a first and do we have a second?
Yep, second that.
Okay, very good, Kara. Then the approval of the minutes of the June 7th meeting, the last meeting.
Mike, we have to take a vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting that. All in favor of the approval of the agenda for August 2nd?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. Then the approval of minutes for the last meeting, June 7th. We have approvals.
Move to approve.
Second?
Second that.
Okay. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That approved for the meeting of June 7th, the Economic Development Authority. All right, then let's move right on to regular business. The consideration with possible action on downtown Parklet grant request from the Aging and Disability Resource Center, Grounded Cafe for a Parklet outside 300 South Adams Street.
Yes, hello. Name is Erin. I will try sharing my screen with you. Let's. Okay. All right. So if you can see this, I will continue. So we have, with this program that we started with the Downtown Parklet program, we opened up, since we last saw you guys, we opened up the application period and had a public meeting about it and introduced the program. And the bids were also talking to businesses that were eligible for this grant. And we decided that we were going to have it open until July 9th. And then we would bring applications forward to the next EDA meeting. So we received an application from the ADRC downtown. And we had been talking to them. They had been interested in a parklet for a while. So they had talked to city staff on multiple occasions. And when the grant period opened up, we met with them and they decided to apply. So this is their current area. They have their walk-up window along Adams Street, South Adams Street, and there is street parking outside of that. They already have some really nice seating out there. And they applied for the permit, the Parklet permit through our permitting process. And then along with that, applied for a grant for installation, materials, and labor. So this is their plan. That's also in the materials that we shared with this report. So there were two options that you probably saw, and staff reviewed it. The option 2, which was the more expensive one, and the more there's more elements to it. Like it includes the shade and some other types of planters and things like that. So we reviewed this one that includes the benches and the platform. And this would go in 2 parking spaces outside of that window in that picture that we just saw. And I've reviewed it. We looked at the elements in the guide that we had along with the that we posted on our website along with the application form. So we really looked at the criteria of safety, economic impact, sustainability and permanence, placemaking and activation, aesthetic quality, and applicant capability. And we had descriptions of those for the applicants, and that is what we reviewed it based off of. So after reviewing all of those things and talking to them and reading their descriptions in their application too, we decided that to recommend approving their request. And with their final cost or their final estimate on this one, it was about $12,000, and our grant program funds up to 80% of costs up to $5,000. So we recommend approving a grant for $5,000, and that's contingent upon their Parklet permit going through the process, the permitting process, and also the proper installation of this after they get their permit.
Okay. Aaron, can we take some questions if there are any? Any questions for Aaron?
Aaron, I see Devin is on the line. Did she want to speak? If so, Devin, can you just wave your hand if you want to speak? I would make a motion to open the floor for interested parties.
Second? I'll second that motion. Okay. Devin, did you want to speak? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say just a word of thanks. And this is a dream we've had for a long time, to bring, to be a really good downtown partner and to create a sense of belonging. I don't know if many of you know, we're in the process of having a mural painted that's going up on our building on both sides of our large structure that is all around equity and inclusion and helping people have a sense of belonging and to celebrate all of their abilities, persons with disabilities, persons without disabilities, family. So this Parklet was a really great opportunity for us to extend and have our outsides match our insides so that our Grounded Cafe could have our trainees experience real urban living and be able to transfer those skills wherever they go. So to do exterior outside service like that, this will be really exciting for us to get people out on the streets and to have people as they drive by to see this as not a human service building where you go when you're in crisis, but a place where you can come and you're always welcome. So thank you so much for even bringing it to this place and helping us kind of make this dream a reality. We're really excited and hopeful that we make it through the process.
Okay, thanks.
Just a question, if I could, Mike. Devin, you presented two different schematics or two different renderings proposals. Assuming that it's the second one that's approved, do you guys have the budget capacity to meet the additional $7,000?
Yes. So this is a little more expensive because, as you know, folks in wheelchairs, et cetera, we really wanted this to be accessible and to have cutouts and to have shade. So while we could do bare bones, having the shade option, et cetera, is going to make this a place where folks who have sensitivities can really be present. So yes, we've been doing some fundraising and opening up for donations and getting a lot of excitement from the community. And my board is in total support of helping us with any pieces that we can't get grant funding for.
Okay, so at this time, you're not seeing that as a cost burden that would prohibit you from being able to install the upgraded version?
Nope, that is correct.
Okay. And I would say, Devin, too, just while the floor is open, I mean, if I were to pick one business in downtown that I think would benefit the most from this, I think your model is one of them, because I don't think it's always apparent from the outside, what's going on in the inside of your building, and to be able to have that opportunity to bring this outside, I just think it's just such a perfect fit for what you do. So I'm very excited to see that you submitted an application.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we taking any action on this?
Yeah, I would move that we close the floor.
Okay.
I second that.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. It's been moved by Brian and seconded by Tara that we close the floor. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And I would make a motion that we approve the grant for $5,000. And I'd like to just make a comment after that, if there's a second.
I'll go ahead and second.
Okay. Who is that?
Chris.
Okay. Okay. Been moved by Brian and seconded by Chris that we approve the grant. Is that correct?
Right. And then if I could just add, Mike, this is one of those, this is kind of what I envisioned, right? Is the ability to kind of close the gap on some of this stuff for organizations, that want to put in a nice parklet. And I think, quite frankly, the proposal that's in front of us, I would deem as almost the Rolls Royce of parklets. It's a very nice design, and I'm excited to see that they're going to do that. And Devin kind of recognizes that that's what they need for their clients and their organization. One thing I would just add, though, is I don't think, every proposal that comes before us needs to be a Rolls Royce proposal. And the reason I bring that point up is because as businesses look at this opportunity, I hope they don't look at it and think, my gosh, I need to come up with this very robust design. I mean, parklets in other cities sometimes are very simple, very easy, very turnkey. They're not, not every single one comes with all the bells and whistles. So I want to obviously see more businesses participate in this program. And I hope that more businesses recognize that while this works for ADRC and the Grounded Cafe, there are other designs and other options that might work for different needs throughout our community and our downtown area specifically. But overall, I like this design. I like what they're doing. Great job, Aaron, for getting that first one in.
Is there a timeline for the ADRC, pardon me? Is there a timeline for them to?
Well, when their permit goes through, and maybe Devin can say if they have received approval yet, but when that goes through, they can pretty much install them, and then they have a year for the reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
And for this program, just to mention, we would like to extend it to the deadline. So right now we have that we're in our second round through August 13th for more applicants that could come to the EDA next month.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Then we've approved, correct? And should we move on to point number 2?
I think we need to take the vote on that yet, Mike.
Oh, we didn't? I'm sorry. All right, let's. So again, the question is consideration with possible action on a downtown parklet grant request from the Aging and Disability Resource Center, Grounded Cafe for a parklet outside 300 South Adams Street. So do we have a vote, a consideration here?
We have a motion and a second. We just need to actually conduct the vote.
Right. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And the motion then is carried.
Okay.
Okay. So are we moving on? Okay. Next item on our agenda, consideration with possible action on a development agreement with Mosky Corporation regarding the development of the properties located at 1300 to 1400 in the 13 to 1400 block of South Huron Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is my item. I'm David Buck. I'm a planner with the city. For those who have not met me before, I screen and kind of go through this quick in a PowerPoint. Now you received the full agreement in your packets, and the staff report has better background, but I'll just go through this really quickly. Let me see here. All right, are you all seeing the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is the property location. This is kind of a unique and been a challenging property for the city and the property owner for quite a while. So really the development agreement covers 2 properties on the 1400 block of South Huron Road. It's about 2/3 of a mile south of East Mason Street. Originally designed to be part of the business on the screen. The properties to the north of this site, of the red highlighted parcels, are within the business park, as are the properties to the west. Huron Road is sort of the limit on this side. So it's actually 2 properties. The larger 30-acre piece is privately owned, and the city owns a small 2-acre strip along the north side. So to give you a little bit of background is Huron Road did not exist prior to 2005. And so that was extended to the city limits. And during that time, there were assessments placed on the property and also some credits given for some right-of-way acquisition, and that was through the county. That time as well, the city owned outlot 21-182-3, that little strip. It's about 80 feet wide, 80 feet on one side, 90 on the other. And again, it's about 2 acres. You can see it here in this picture. It originally went with this parcel to the north. But when that parcel was sold, there is a large ATC overhead transmission line that runs through there. And you can see it in the picture to the right, basically making that area relatively unbuildable for all intents and purposes for the development to the north. So the city retained this 2-acre piece with really no kind of plan what to do with it, had the easement on it. So we'll fast forward a few years, quite a few years. The property owner, Paul Kosmosky, Mosky Development Corporation, decided to come forward and start developing this property as a, I believe at the time, as part of the business park. A wetland delineation was conducted with the city, and it found quite a bit of high quality wooded wetlands. And you can kind of see this is that 30-acre parcel in the center, and everything that's highlighted in gray, or that's in gray, are actually high quality wetlands, which basically means they can't be touched. Some wetlands can be mitigated or adjusted. These are ones that can't be addressed whatsoever. And then there's color might not be showing up very well, but there's a green buffer around those wetlands, and that is also area that cannot be developed as well. So essentially it made this parcel incredibly difficult to develop, especially for any business park type purposes, just not enough buildable land area. You could fit in a small office or something like that, but it became very difficult. On top of that, there is quite a bit of assessment on the property. So with that assessment and the constraints of the wetlands, it really became feasibly challenged to do any development. So our former director, Kevin Vonk, and Paul Kosmosky, who's the principal for the Mosky Corporation, kind of sat down and had discussions over, I would say over a year, on how we can get a win-win situation out of this. And what you're seeing today in this development is that win-win. So go a little bit further. See if I'm zooming down. Okay, so the first thing that would happen is the lots would be divided into future development sites. So lot 1 would stay business park. There is a small area up here that has potential to be developed for, again, a smaller user. It's right off of Einstein Way, which is a I-43 Business Center local street. Lot 2 is much larger, but contains a lot more wetlands and unbuildable areas, and kind of is more challenged in the center. With that, staff and the developer looked at it, or the property owner, I should say, looked at it and thought it would be a pretty suitable site for medium density residential. And then to the south, there is some detention that's in here and really a lot of unbuildable property. So this would be an outlot, which basically means it's unbuildable, and it would be a conservancy area. So that is sort of what came out of that thought process. And I'll kind of get into a little bit more. Lot 1 would be marketed for sale. There is no current plan for Lot 1, but the developer is a multifamily and a single family developer, and was very creative in fitting in some units in here. I apologize for the tiny pictures, but I had to get them on the slide, right? So on Lot 2 and the city-owned lot, which is shown right up here on the top, the developer would construct 69 market rate apartments. The estimated rents are between $900 and $1,200 a month. There'd be 3 two-story 15-unit buildings with attached garages, and you can see those here. And there would be 2 two-story 8-unit buildings, and you can see that design here on the bottom. And you can kind of tell the larger ones are the 15 units and the smallers are the 8s. There would be on-site parking, some detached garages. You can see the developers trying to take advantage of the wetland views by facing the buildings towards the wetlands. And then again, utilizing that easement area for only pavement, which is something that ATC would permit. Their biggest concern is any type of vertical interference with the power lines. So this is what would be proposed on that site. There is a sequence of events that takes place. This is not a simple transaction. So this is kind of how it would shake out. So the first step would be the property owner transfers the 30-acre lot to the city for $1. We receive that property. We record conservation easements all over the wetlands and the buffer areas, so those are preserved in perpetuity. We then combine our little 2-acre parcel with the 30-acre parcel of the property owners or the developers, which is ours at that point. We then would rescind the special assessments that are on the site, basically making it, as a city, we can rescind the special assessments on ourselves. We would combine those parcels together, sell it back to the developer for the original assessment price. And then the developer would market Lot 1 and develop Lot 2, as I kind of had shown you. So this is really what the heart of that development agreement is spelling out. This sequence of events. So we both get locked into this sequence. Again, assuming the council approves it. There is a financial impact. So a lot of people say, well, why would we be doing this? There's no TIF incentive, but there is an assessment removal incentive. And that is approximately $300,000. So large sum of money, yes, but the current value of the property is about $30,000. So it generates $750 for the entire taxing entities for total tax annually. Only about 300 of that comes to the city. So very little tax revenue. The estimated value by our assessor's department, just for the residential piece, not including the commercial, is between 5.5 and 7 million. That would generate a major increase in taxes to about 135 a year. 53 of that would be coming to the city of Green Bay itself. So as you can see on the bottom of this slide, it would generate an additional, and this again is just the residential commercial development in there. That's just going to be on the cake, but it would generate about $105,000 annually in tax revenue to all the taxing entities. 53,000 of that would come to the city. You know, it's not like a TIF incentive where you're getting a pay-go or anything like that, but within about 6 years, a little under 6 years, that assessment would be recovered. And then the taxes after that would just continue. Now, those are sort of the dollars and cents benefits and financial impact. But what is often not addressed is our need for housing units. And we need all kinds of housing units, not just urban, not just affordable. This would create 69 new market rate units, very suburban in style, but you're in a suburban area. And even more importantly, on the Far East side. The business park has been incredibly successful, and you're going to be hearing a little bit later tonight us talking about a potential expansion. All those expansions bring a lot of people. Those people need a place to live. And not everybody is able or willing to buy a large lot, single family, which is the typical prototype you see on the Far East side. So that was just a super quick rundown of that development agreement. Again, much more detail in your packets, but staff is recommending approval of that draft agreement with sort of one caveat, that it get forward from the EDA to the city council once it's reviewed, edited, and approved by the city attorney. She has been in discussions with the property owner's attorney, with Moskey's attorney. There's only a few items on there. Some of it is very typos, that kind of thing, but it would be going back and forth. So the essence of the agreement would be the same. If there was anything substantial, either the council would have to make a call on that and we would pull it out, or we would bring it back to the EDA for a reconsideration. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions from the city standpoint, and I know Mr. Kosmowski is here as well. So we've been in very close conversation for a long time, and so fire away.
David, just a question for you related to the special assessments. Could you just walk us through, the language in the agreement is confusing to perhaps someone who doesn't have background knowledge. So okay. 168,000, it says at the time of the special assessment levied in 2005, or 421,000 is calculated in 2020 under deferred assessments within the city code of ordinances. Could you please walk us through what the special assessment was for and what all that means?
Sure. The real assessment was really more like 230 at the time it went in. So there were, you're assessed when the road gets built. They put in storm sewers and laterals, sanitaries and laterals. They actually build the street itself. And there's water laterals. So all those things ended up being about $220,000 in 2005. So as time progresses, 15 years later, there are interest payments that get added onto that because we borrow the money to build the road. Then there is also an adjustment for dollar values. So that'll change over time. The dollar will increase usually, doesn't decrease in value. And so that original 168,000 in 2020 dollars might be much more. And so when that's all calculated together, it ends up being in 2020 dollars, $420,000.
Is it normal or customary for the city to wait 15 years before doing anything to recapture a special assessment?
It is not.
Okay, so the reason I bring that up, though, is because it would seem to me that that's our problem then, right? So, and the reason I bring that up is because, to me, the real value here isn't 421 then. It's really the 168 plus maybe a couple years worth of interest and penalties compared to what time frame we would customarily allow before we would take action to recover that assessment.
Right, and I'm not super familiar on how that process works. I do believe that the city had been attempting to collect the assessments over time.
I mean, it just seems to me that to let something go on that long, though, right? It should have never been allowed to go that long. So when it hits a certain point, I feel like that's kind of, that burden is on us then for letting that continue as opposed to the property owner.
Correct, and I think that is part of the reasoning for this development agreement and getting that back down to the original assessed value, especially with the understanding, with the wetland and all of that. I mean, if it was a clear open site, I think the owner might have been able to pay that and recoup it, but it is extremely limited on what's developable. So again, bad situation on both sides, but I think this is a great public-private partnership and negotiation to make that happen. But you're right, Brian. Basically, this agreement brings it back down to that original assessment.
Okay. And I have a couple more questions that I'll wait until after the developer has an opportunity to speak. And unless somebody else has an immediate question for you, I'd be happy to make a motion to open the floor for interested parties.
I'd be happy to discuss anything with anybody if they would like to, if they'd like to have any other questions or anything. And if this is my opportunity to say something, I guess
I think we just need to conduct that vote yet.
Yeah, we need a second and a vote on the Brian's motion.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I made the motion to open the floor. We just need a second.
Okay, is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, I'm sorry, who was that?
Tara?
Tara? Okay, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 And motion is carried.
So yeah, now would be the time if you want to have Mr. Kosmowski answer some questions, would be the perfect time for it. Or I guess, Paul, if you wanted to make a statement, the floor is open.
Thank you. David, thank you. You did a great job presenting this because I know you got in the middle of this. Wendy's was a little familiar with this almost 5 years ago. And so she's well aware of this situation too, as we've gone through it. And again, what the reason for this whole situation is that site is really a non-buildable site with the wetlands. And without going into real vast detail about that, that's probably why the lengths of time that had gone on, we had gotten the assessment permit and it did not it was going to get paid when developed, but with the wetlands that became very hard to do, and or the development that could have occurred on that particular piece of property was so small that it wouldn't have warranted the amount of the assessments because of the wetland issues. So again, that's just adding on to what David said. And along with that, I might add that when we did spend that $50,000 or $57,000 credit at the time, we never got cash from the city for that. That was for property acquisition. That just went back as kind of a credit against the assessment at such time it was paid. So that if that anything, that might help clarify that the reason, the difference between the $200,000 assessment and then the $50,000. So hopefully I helped clarify some of that. Other than that, it's been a difficult site. And again, we've tried various different things to try and do something, but by adding that little strip of property to the north, help make it, again, a little bit more developable because we're not going to build any buildings under those high wires, but we're going to be able to use it as like some parking and maybe like a drive. So that's taking advantage of that. And that's also adding a few more units to the site at this particular point in time, which helps then defer all the costs. So again, that's kind of where we were. We got into a discussion about 2 years ago. Like I said, Wendy and I and DPW talked about this several years ago, just could never come to a conclusion. And then we had a discussion with DPW, Kevin Vaughn, and the mayor, Eric, at the time. This was pre-COVID. And we kind of said, this is the way to go. Let's work out this agreement. That's where we came up with the dollars and how we would move forward. And so that's where it was left. And then COVID hit. So, and here we are today. But we're thinking if we don't get this resolved somehow, it's just going to keep going on and on and on. And when do you solve this issue? So that's why we're here trying to make something happen. And then the last thing, when Einstein Way went in, we paid the assessments on Einstein Way, which would be on the western side of that property. So we're able to develop that little whatever. There's maybe about a 7-acre or Wendy 7 or 10 acre developable piece. When we looked at that, we had so many different site plans out there. Wendy, the economic development has been trying to market that piece for us for the last 10 years about that anyway, so they're well aware of it. But that's already been paid. And the reason why that was paid at that time is because we were able to get a direct benefit of that road when that cul-de-sac went in on Einstein Way. So that, if anything, I hope I helped clarify some things. But David, again, you did a great job. Thanks.
Paul, just one quick question for you. When you're looking at the Outlot 1, if I understand correctly from David's presentation, particular outlot you're going to market and try to sell, or is that kind of the intent with that? Do you have any idea what kind of user you might be looking for?
Yes, the intent there was a business park, having like a business park with, again, Wendy, it was Park Place. That was the idea, to have more of a Park Place type business park within the woods. And that was the original intent at the time, okay? And then we have to also remember back in 2007, 2008, I always say it, we kind of had a lost decade with real estate, because not much happened between 2008 to 2016, 17 in real estate. Everything just kind of died at that particular point when we had that the Great Recession. So anyway, but that's what the marketing efforts were, Brian, on that, is to do some type of a business park. I don't know what else we could do there. I'll tell you, right next to us over there is the psychiatric parcel, and it could maybe have a use like that too. That could enhance, if they ever needed to expand, that could be a use, because you're kind of secluded in the woods. But anyway, those are just some thoughts, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Do we have any further business with?
I had one question on the design of the residential development. I couldn't tell, are there any sidewalks in that development at all?
There's a sidewalk that runs straight. There'll be a sidewalk, I believe, that runs all the way down Huron Road.
Okay.
There's sort of like a multi-use trail that runs along Huron itself. Internally, and this is a conceptual layout, so per the development agreement, it would have to meet regular zoning code. And so there may be some minor changes to this layout, but this is the concept. Okay. And our code does require internal pedestrian circulation.
And also to that, where between Huron and where the roads are, and we kept all the woods is still there. So you're not going to be able to see too far to the west, especially today, because that's all a wooded area. And even the small strip between the apartments to the south and Huron, there's probably a 30-foot wide strip of woods in there right now. And we had already cleared the site to try to get this thing moving. So you can, it's the only way you see it when you look through the driveways. That's pretty much what it is, because it's a pretty heavily wooded area.
Which, from our standpoint, from a planning perspective, creates kind of a nice little community. And Paul did not mention this either. He does have a development directly to the south in Bellevue with similar, I think they're similar properties, similar buildings, and it's been very successful.
Okay. All right. Further discussion?
Motion to close the floor.
Okay. Do we have a second to close the floor?
I second that motion.
Okay, Tara? All right, let's take a vote. Motion to close the floor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so move.
Mike, just a couple of comments if I could.
Sure.
David, and perhaps this will get caught yet, but to your point about Scrivener errors in the agreement, item number D, the way that those numbers are spelled out relative to the actual numbers are not in alignment. So just at least I would call that one out right away. It says $729, the number is $746.10.
Oh,
And you have that same issue on all three of those items.
okay.
The other question I had was, I think back to the development agreement that we had with University Heights, and one of the challenges we had with that particular project was an inability to recapture the land if the developer defaulted on the agreement. Now, when I look at this agreement, there were some provisions in there, including a right of first refusal for the city to purchase the property if there was a default. My question is there, from a legal perspective, is there an ability for us to place a lien on this property in the amount of the special assessments should there be a default?
I mean, we could add that into the development. However, there is in here I'm not muted. Okay, good. There is in here what do you want to say in it? Like an incentive, and only a certain amount of the assessment is relieved based on development practices.
Right, and I recall that. The only challenge with that, of course, is that we say that if the developer defaults, in this instance, that they will then owe that money to the city. And then there's still, and then in the meantime, the city's gone through this transaction, right? And still doesn't, where's our ability to actually place a lien on it?
Yeah, that would, well.
A lien isn't quite the same as a right of first refusal, right?
Correct. Right of first refusal is just, we get the first shot at the property if it's being sold. But in reality, if there's a breach in the agreement, does
this qualify for placement of a lien?
Yeah, it would go back onto the property itself. So he would, at that point, Mosky Corporation would have to pay the assessment again, adjusted probably for another year. So that there is always that backup. Except
that now it's no longer a special assessment is my point. Now it's just an agreement between us and the developer, right? And we can take the legal action and all that stuff. And I'm just, of course, we have a responsibility to the taxpayers, and that's why I'm asking the question. I just, that's something that maybe I would kick back to the city attorney to consider before the city council meeting. But I just want to know if this is a qualifying if that's a default that would qualify us to be able to place a lien on the property. So that way we don't waive the special assessment. And then if hypothetically the developer doesn't proceed with the development or doesn't meet the valuation within the agreement, do we have the ability to place a lien, or does the developer just owe the money to the city? And I hope that the EDA can appreciate the difference, because obviously if the property is sold then to somebody else, that lien has to be satisfied before that transaction can occur. Whereas if it's just the developer owes us money, then it's incumbent upon us to obviously pursue repayment of that debt. And it gives us, I think, another tool to make sure that the city taxpayers are protected.
Yeah, so I think that would be something you could add into your recommendation. And I would suggest doing the 168, the original assessment. And then, like I had said, Mr. Kosmowski's attorney and the city attorney are still discussing. So that's something they can discuss to put back in. And if that condition is not acceptable, then either the council could make the call at the end of the day, or we could kick it back to EDA.
Sure.
For more discussion. But yeah, I think This is a development agreement, so it's an agreement between the two parties. We could definitely do that.
Okay. But overall, that was really the only question that kind of came out for me. I just want to commend staff and the developer. I mean, this was a really creative agreement to do something with a property that's really been sitting idle for a long time and not generating taxes and not serving a need in our community. And so to me, this does two things, of course, is it resolves that special assessment issue, but it does help fill a need for housing, which I know you alluded to, David. I think, and the reason I was asking the questions earlier about why this action on the special assessment sooner is because it goes to the point of the $421,000. It's really an artificially inflated number because of our own doing as a city government for not taking action on that sooner. And so while in your presentation, David, it is that we have about a 6-year payback or recapture on that, I think it's more accurate to say this is 3 years if we use the 168, maybe 4 years with interest that eventually would have stopped had we taken action when we normally would, right? So this is actually even a better deal for the taxpayers, I think, than what's laid out there. I mean, when you look at other TIF incented developments that we're doing right now for housing, the recapture period on that is much longer. So this is really, I think, a great arrangement, solves a housing problem, gets the taxpayers into a better position. And the fact that the purchase back as well, I think that should be acknowledged also. So I fully support this. I think this is a great deal for everybody involved, and I commend staff for all the hard work as well as the developer that you guys have put into this the last couple of years.
Thank you.
If we're looking for a motion, I would officially, I would move that we approve this development agreement as presented with one caveat, and that be that the city attorney negotiates with the developer's attorney on language that would allow for the placement of a lien for the amount of the special assessment in the event of a default.
Do we have a second?
Second that.
Thank you, Tara. So the motion has been on the floor, and do we have an approval? Do we have the vote is if you approve, say A or I?
A.
A. Can't read my own writing. Okay, then the motion is carried. Okay, we're moving on.
Thank you all. Really appreciate it. I think you'll be proud of it when it's all finished. I think it's been a long time getting this way, and I think you're gonna. Like I said, David doing a great job. Wendy, you guys have been a wonderful, and Matt's knowing about this too. So I really appreciate everybody. Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, then moving on to the informational portion of our meeting. Number one is staff update on the I-43 expansion project road map. Anybody speaking on behalf of the I-43 expansion project?
Sure. Yes, and I will share my screen again.
Yep, I can.
So, you want to take it, Wendy?
Sure. What's going on here? I don't know if my screen's going to share now that I said sure. Oh, gosh. Well, there we are. Is that coming up?
Not yet. There might be a little lag.
Is it up yet? No. Let's try it
not.
again. Let's try share screen. Mine's popping up really nicely, but
Your connection might be poor. You want me to pop it up? Was it the PowerPoint?
sure,
you wanted
that's
to put
great.
up?
Yeah, let's put the PowerPoint up real quick.
One second. Here we go.
Here, but let's see. Be
How about
different.
that?
So there we are. I'm just going to give it kind of, we're going to be bouncing back and forth a little bit with the, so right now we have our roadmap that we talked to you a little bit about developing last time. As you know, we recently had a commercial market study done. And what we did is took the information from that, created a staff report, or actually a survey. And when the staff came together and we determined the most desirable uses. And Dave is perfectly flipped to the next piece. And since Dave was the lead on this particular portion, would you like to add your comments about what the survey revealed?
Sure. Well, the survey itself, we did a commercial market survey, and we kind of analyzed uses were needed in the region, not just the city of Green Bay, but kind of the region. And when we looked at this expansion for the business center or the business park, really kind of a new business park, which just happens to be adjacent, we looked, based on that market study, much more industrial in nature. The office components were less desirable in the market study, but distribution centers, warehousing, cold storage, those were really the hot items, and really distribution centers and manufacturing were big. So we went basically through, this is a table that you would find in our zoning code for industrial districts. So it lists all of the uses in an industrial district along this left column, and you'll see three. The first is going to say a P or a C or have nothing. So a P means it's permitted. You come and get a building permit, you put it up. A C is conditional, and what I like to tell people, that means council has to approve it. So C is for council, but it's really for conditional use. So that would go through the Plan Commission, City Plan Commission, and City Council for approval. Obviously, any conditions related to the use could be placed on that before it's approved. Development standards is the next column, and you'll see little X's. And these are kind of uses that have historically had design issues. And there's special things in the code, in the existing zoning code, for those types of uses. And then the last column is a location limited. So with almost any business park, when you're on a major arterial road, such as Mason, or in this case, I guess it could be like Grandview, oftentimes there's uses that aren't really industrial, but they're like industrial support uses. So you'll see some of these listed on here, like a bank, or a healthcare facility, restaurants. I go down to the next page, and you should have all this in your packet as well. So some of the other ones you'll see, like a animal hospital or veterinary clinic. These are all kind of support businesses for the employees and the employers, for that matter, of a business park. So they would be limited to an arterial road. Yeah, so we kind of included those in. So I won't go through each one of the uses, but you'll see they're pretty heavy in this production, processing, and storage, also transportation, and they get much lighter and more limited when you get to the office uses or the regular commercial uses. Now, some of them are obviously business related. A business service use could be a copy center or something related to a business. So those are obviously more suitable for inside a business park. But certain things like general retail sales, depending what it is, might have issues. So that one we want the council to take a look at and the Plan Commission to take a look at before it can be approved. So I guess with that, I would just kind of, you can kind of take a look through the list. There's not going to be any action on this tonight. But this was sort of our second, maybe our third actually, review of uses out here. And Wendy will be talking about sort of the area for potential the new business park. And these are just all steps going forward. So we kind of determine the boundaries, determine the uses, and then we'll build a plan unit development which would include covenants. So that could have design standards, it could have access restrictions. We get into the nitty gritty, but this is really kind of the high level area and uses to start right now in our roadmap.
David, would you bring up the comparable prices as our next item?
Sure.
Did you see that?
Let me just bring up this quick first, if you don't mind. It's the area.
Okay, we can kind of, nope. Sure.
Can you see it? So this is the existing I-43 Business Center. And this is more of the, what we had been calling the I-43 East Business Center. Again, you can see the wetlands in the background, and I know we've talked about this multiple times before. The area is not developable for large-scale industrial type users. There is very heavy wooded wetlands in the centerpiece. And then you can kind of see the gray is the area where we would have the formal business park boundaries. The starred properties are ones that the city already owns, which is always useful to get things moving. You can sell off our properties. To the south, you have Bellevue. Bellevue's comp plan shows residential all to the south. Our existing comprehensive plan matches this almost identically. The only difference is this multifamily piece here, which would not be in the business center, but I think our current code has this as commercial, big box commercial, which is kind of, was hot back in the day and not so hot now. So this park could serve as or this green area could serve as sort of a bridge between the two users, the residential users and the industrial users, and just kind of be a nice area. So, and I don't know, Wendy, we did talk about maybe phasing it, like starting the business park was starting it right here at this property line. You pull in these 40s and 20 and start just with this corner. But when we started looking at that, the land area is large, but the type of development sites that we're getting inquiries on are huge. They're 100,000 square foot buildings. Well, here's a good example is this warehouse here. So we felt that phasing probably was not the best idea, that we would just go ahead and hit the entire park from the ground running. So,
and one of the things that the survey, the commercial real estate survey did point out was that warehousing was coming on strong, and that's what we've heard with all of the other municipalities, that they're running out of larger developable sites, and that developers as well were looking for larger commercial sites for either expansions or warehousing. And so that kind of put to rest our phasing thought when we had everyone saying similar things. So
I'm sorry, I kind of jumped in there, Wendy, but I just...
No worries. You're doing great. You're doing great.
Mr. Garcia
Continue.
wasn't familiar with this project at all, and so just a refresher.
No problem at all. And a lot of the information is repeated a couple of times. We have it in our spreadsheet because we wanted to make sure you were showing what we were checking off. And then we just had these supporting documents to share with you. And some of you have this. One thing, and I kind of put some of the land comparables that I've been tracking over the course of time. I've been calling and talking to the municipalities, talking to our developers and our real estate specialists out in the community that work with these commercial projects. And the prices haven't really changed very much over the course of time, as you'll notice. A lot of the properties actually are becoming a little less in price. They're becoming deflated. Part of it has to do with the cost of building materials. The materials are so expensive that something has to give in order for the project to happen. And a lot of the municipalities and even the property owners, most recently, in order to move their property, know that something has to give. And sometimes those costs are so exorbitant right now, although they're starting to plane out a little bit, or we hope they're planing out, that we'll be able to get kind of back into some normalcy and some numbers and things like that. But for right now, land prices are not very high. As a matter of fact, they're on the deflated side. And that was true of all of the municipalities that I did check in with that had industrial related properties. And I think they also just recently had an article on this whole particular thing in the business news, and they had the list of real estate and commercial properties as far as industrial parks, and that kind of true of the article that that happened in the June 24th Business News business lists piece. So that we've had everybody say about the same thing. So we know that they're either full. Some property, I know Howard had mentioned that they are willing to even give away the property that was remaining because it was challenged and very negotiable. So when they said negotiable, that meant that they were pretty, and it really depends on the development that's happening and the jobs that are creating. And it would be up to the negotiations that happen in that municipality. But most people were willing to figure out the best way to move a project forward given the opportunities. So that was kind of my land comparisons. And that was step 2 and 3 on our roadmap sheet were the comparable prices between real estates and municipalities and other industrial parks and the land map. So Dave, would you go to our, so we just wanted to give this group an opportunity to kind of see the progress that is being made, that we've been able to complete the things that were on our task list for May and June and into July. And now we're kind of inching forward into the July, August, September realm of this. It's kind of a building block. One item kind of builds onto the next, where we're gathering the information. And we'll keep you up to date with how we progress. And if you have any comments, I know Dave or anyone on our team would be happy to answer questions because we've all been taking bits and pieces of this project.
I'm going to add one thing, Wendy.
Yeah.
And I stress this all the time when we talk about the I-43. In my opinion, take it for what it is, our business park has been the example of the states and the region in 43. I attribute a lot of that to the city's decision to purchase the property in advance and then sell it ourselves. It's a risk. You have to, put a TID and get the money and actually negotiate and purchase the property. But that's going to be a discussion item to come back to the EDA later as we start getting all these, prices for infrastructure and that kind of stuff together. Because that's really a choice. If you look at I-43, that's how we did it. We expanded it 3 times. We're sold out pretty much. There are some open sites, but I don't think we own any developable open sites. And to contrast that, you have University Heights Commerce Center. So different animal, of course, different location, but that's one that was privately held land. We put the same type of covenants over the top. And the movement wasn't there. Part of that is, to be brutally honest, is the city can sell for realistic land prices because we're getting a return on our investment through taxes. I call it economic farming. We're getting a yield from our farm fields. A private landowner is going to be selling off that land and they need their profit, especially if it's a farmer. Their retirement is wrapped up in their land, and it sometimes makes that land less competitive in the open market. So that is something we're going to have to discuss later as an economic development authority, and then council ultimately will make that call. But you'll see item number 7 is TID timing, and that's probably where that's going to start to be discussed. And then also way down on is start land purchase negotiations. So if it goes that way, that's where ultimately we'll end up. But that's far into the future. Well, not that far, but a little ways.
Months down the road. Does anyone have any questions? Or did we kind of provide an okay recap for you?
Wendy and or David. I think to your point about getting total site control. I mean, that's kind of a number one rule in development. Site control will make projects happen faster than when you don't have site control. So I tend to lean in that direction as well. Though I go back to David, one time you presented to us, I can't remember when it was, probably a year and a half ago. And you gave us kind of like, here's where, we did the survey of property owners and here's where they sit. Interested in 5 years, interested in 10 years, whatever, those breakdowns were. What is your confidence level that if we create this TID, and I presume the intent is that we borrow from the TID then to start site acquisition, What is your confidence level that the property owners currently over there will negotiate at reasonable or market rates for us to parcel this together?
Well, in my opinion, we've been getting a lot of calls since we held many meetings with the farmers and the landowners out there. And preliminary thoughts, most are willing to sell immediately or within 5 years. And the land prices that we talked about were $5,000 to $40,000 per acre. Now, of course, that can always change, but there's a couple different aspects. So one would be borrowing from the TID without development, and that's more risky, and then doing the negotiations. We could do the negotiations first and get some commitments, then borrow the money in the TID. I mean, the TID, you don't have to borrow anything if you don't want. But the best alternative in my mind is that we can sell off 1 or 2 of our properties, get some development and get some income generated from that, which then we can use to borrow and pay off debt. That's the best case scenario. Yeah, I don't think we're to that point yet, but I am very confident we will get good prices from those landowners, a majority of them. We've been contacted, Wendy, I'm sure has been contacted as well by big tract landowners saying, hey, are you guys ready? I'm ready to retire. I'm ready to sell. So I'm hopeful, but I'm pretty confident. I don't know if you want to add to that, Wendy. You do most of the talking with the landowners.
No, I think that says it. You know, this out here, there's some pretty big wetlands. And so I think in order to be able to mitigate those, you might need a larger parcel to be able to create, you know, the pond retentions or the wetland, you know, to make sure that everything is accommodated. So larger parcels probably make sense when you see how many wetlands are out here. That the property owners or the new development would have to be pretty creative in order to get the size of development that they want on these parcels. So anyway, mitigating some of that, it looks like a need. And so that also gets rid of the phasing idea, because we know that if it's a larger parcel, they're going to have to worry about where to put the stormwater ponds and all that kind of stuff. So if you start to kind of put it together, it makes perfect sense to just look at larger swaths.
Okay. Are we ready to move on? I don't think there's any
Motion to
other
receive and place on file.
Say again, Brian.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Yeah. So do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second motion to proceed with this. And how did you phrase that?
To receive and place on file.
To receive and place on file. We have a vote. We'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Motion is carried. All right, moving on to the next item on our informational section, staff update on brownfield programs.
All right, that's me. Screen here, hopefully you can see it. All right, so there's not a ton to report since the last time I've reported to you back in June. Chris, for your benefits, the city of Green Bay has secured grant funds through EPA for brownfields. We've got, and the Economic Development Authority is our federally recognized brownfields advisory committee. So I keep you guys updated with all of our brownfields efforts and take a better program. Every month I'll have a program update, which I'll share. So this month, I can report that we have so far invested about 44% of our current assessment grant. That's about $132,000, just shy of that. That's about, say maybe $12,000 or $13,000 invested since June, since the last time I reported back to you guys. Most of the funds spent since June has gone towards the former Badger sheep mill site on South Broadway. In total, we've assessed 7 sites across the city. You can see here on the map, primarily in the downtown area where we've got some more contaminated areas in our downtown, just because they're older and they've got more former industrial uses. We've completed several phase 1s, which is pretty much just the background property history reporting. The red circles are the phase 2 reports that we've done, which is the testing of the soils and groundwater. And then the orange circles are where we've done lead and asbestos inspection. So primarily what we've been focusing our efforts on most recently has been this Badger sheet metal site. This is 420 South Broadway, very close to our shipyard project. This is a site that the Redevelopment Authority owns. We currently have a planning option on this site, or a developer has a planning option on the site, Impact 7. They were awarded a 3-month planning option a couple months ago, and they are proposing a project here estimated to be maybe as much as $53 million. 203 apartments are proposed with this project. Also 9,400 square feet of retail space and a green roof in addition to that. In total, with our current assessment grant, we've spent about $36,000 on this site. It's a lot more here in August, actually. As we get ready to gear the site up for redevelopment, we need to get a better handle on what contamination is there, where it exists, and how best to address it. So here in August, we are really going to be doubling down on our efforts to get a better handle on those things. We are also having conversations with the state, WEDC, and EPNers at seeing if we can obtain some federal funds and state funds for the actual cleanup of this site. Our assessment grant will only cover costs for the testing, but the cleanup, the demolition, the remediation of the soil and groundwater contamination, that's a source of funds we haven't identified quite yet. So we'll be working with those partners to secure those resources. The shipyard project, we continue to work hard on this one. The city has received $1.5 million altogether so far for brownfield remediation at the shipyard site. We've spent over $1 million of those funds on the remediation. Most of that work was done last summer with bringing clean new fill to the site to raise it up and cap that contamination. This past May, Merge Urban Development signed a development agreement with the city of Green Bay and the Redevelopment Authority for their project, which is 225 units on the north side of this site. That's estimated to be $21 million in redevelopment. That will be leveraged. So that one's well underway. Construction on the public waterfront improvements. We're in the design phases now with construction planning. We anticipate going out to bid in January and some waterfront as early into the spring as we possibly can. We're working really hard right now, having several meetings a week on trying to get this project up and going. It's moving in the right direction, yeah. So also I wanted to give a brief update on our latest grant that we've secured with the EPA, our revolving loan fund. We received $800,000 to create a brand new revolving loan fund program for the city of Green Bay, where we are able to loan funds out to developers to cover cleanup costs. That was approved by this body here just a couple months ago, and council shortly thereafter. So this program is technically up and running. We're going to be developing some additional marketing materials here to get information out to stakeholders and potential lenders or borrowers, I should say, to get these dollars out in the community. We've been already doing some direct stakeholder outreach. We'll continue to do more of it. So potential borrowers are familiar that it's available. Questions?
I guess not. It's a good report. Okay, moving on, director's report. Neil is not here. He did leave his notes, which are going to be an interesting read. Do we have a motion to, what am I saying here? Motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that this meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting, it says here, next meeting is October 4th, 2021.
I just wanted to say also thanks, Chris, for being part of this committee. It's great to have you here.
Be here. Yeah.
Welcome.
Chris.
Welcome. It's great. We kind of jumped right